Hello students and welcome all. Student, today we'll start with a new chapter, that is the United Nations. Let's see the introduction.
The United Nations, an international organization, was established to ensure peace and security at the international level. In this chapter, we shall study its objectives, principles, and structure, role in securing peace. The United Nations is an organization which came into being in the year 1945. It was the result of the devastation of the First and Second World War. We have studied about the World War I and II in the first chapter of Political Science, where we saw the life and property was destroyed on a large scale. So, in order to bring uniformity in international peace and security, the League of Nations was established after the First World War. But after the Second World War, the League of Nations failed and did not maintain peace and order among the nations. And then it was decided the use of such destructive and dangerous weapons should be stopped. That's when, after the Second World War, the United Nations was established. Now,
Let me begin by giving you a brief introduction to the UN. As we learned in the first chapter of political science about the two world wars, we also learned about the formation of the two most important organizations in those times, the League of Nations that was established post World War I and the United Nations that was established post World War II. After World War I, an international group developed the League of Nations to solve disputes between countries. When World War II started, the initiative failed, but highlighted the need for a new reformed organization that could promote global peace. The UN is an organization between countries established on 24th October 1945 to, to promote international cooperation. It was founded to replace the League of Nations following World War II and to prevent another conflict. When it was founded, the UN had 51 member states. There are now 193 member states. As the world's only truly universal global organization, the United Nations has become the foremost forum to address issues that transcend national boundaries and cannot be resolved by any one country acting alone. To its initial goals of safeguarding peace, protecting human rights, establishing the framework for international justice, and promoting economic and social progress, in the 7.5 decades since its creation, the United Nations has added on new challenges such as climate change, refugees, AIDS, and now the fight against the Wuhan virus COVID 19. In this chapter, we are going to study its objectives, principles, structure, and role in securing peace. In August 1941, Franklin D. Roosevelt and Winston Churchill held a secret meeting where they discussed the possibility of starting an international peace effort. They came up with a declaration called the Atlantic Charter, which outlined ideal goals of war and paved the way for the development of the UN. The United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union led the charge. The organization's purpose.
Chronology of the establishment of United Nations, in that we have seen that the Prime Minister of England, Sir Winston Churchill, and American President Franklin D. Roosevelt, during the Second World War, they had a meeting on 14th August 1941, and according to this treaty, they have thought about establishing an international security after the Second World War was over. And they had signed the charter, the Atlantic Charter, on 24th October 1945.
Now, let us study the chronology of the establishment of the United Nations. The Atlantic Treaty was signed between Prime Minister of England, Sir Winston Churchill, and American President Franklin D. Roosevelt during the Second World War on 14th of August 1941. According to this treaty, a decision was taken to set a permanent mechanism to establish international security after the Second World War was over. Detailed discussions followed on these decisions in two conferences among Allied powers in 1944 and 1945, and a draft of the treaty to establish an international organization was prepared. After that, at San Francisco in America, representatives of 50 countries drafted the Charter of the United Nations after discussions. As soon as the war got over, the charter was signed on 24th October 1945. The United Nations is an international organization of sovereign nations.
Now students, we shall see that what are the objectives of the United Nations.
The organization's purpose and principles are outlined in the UN Charter. According to the document, the United Nations' four main purposes are to maintain international peace and security, to develop friendly relations among nations, to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems, and to enhance economic cooperation at the international level. Over the years, the role of the UN has expanded from an organization that focused on peace and security to one that includes a wide range of global concerns. Today, the UN provides solutions for problems related to healthcare, the environment, criminal justice, refugee dilemmas, and more.
The United Nations is the world's largest international organization. When the charter was signed on 24th October 1945, only 50 countries were members of United Nations in the beginning. But today, this number has gone up to 193. All these members of the nations came together on the platform of the United Nations. The United Nations has its own definite objectives. We shall study them in detail. The United Nations takes up all the necessary measures for establishing international peace. It works to prevent conflict. It helps countries in conflict to make peace. It creates conditions and allows peace to hold and flourish. The United Nations Secretary Council has the responsibility and it assures to maintain international peace and security. Also, the United Nations is based on the principles to maintain peace and security, that is, by providing freedom to all the countries. It restrains the country who wants to enter into conflict with other countries. It also gives assistance for the peacekeeping missions. Now let us study the principles of United Nations. The organization is based on the principles of the sovereign equality of all its members. That means everyone will be treated equally and there will be no discrimination based on their economical power, military power, or geographical conditions. All members should have their international disputes settled by peaceful means in such a manner that international peace and security and justice are not endangered.
Let us understand what are the principles of United Nations. All member nations will have the same status. There is no discrimination among nations based on geographical size, economic, or military power. All member nations of the United Nations should respect the freedom and geographical unity of other member nations. All member nations should solve their international disputes and mutual differences by peaceful means. Students, now that we know about the purpose and work of the UN, we shall study the other principal organs of the UN, their structure and functioning in the next module. Please refer to the Word document that follows. Thank
Thank you. Have a nice day.